Welcome. Here in this session we are continuing with the discussion on organizational design. Here we will try to know about the different organizational designs present and some very traditional designs to the contemporary designs. We will start with the simple design, which is called like a simple structure. A simple structure is a structure which is characterized by low degree of departmentalization, wide span of control, and authority is centralized in a single person, and you have little formalization. Like maybe when you are a startup, an organization is startup, there is not too much of employees, so we don't have to differentiate between their functions, and the hierarchies are not so well established. So what we have is a simple structure. Next structure that we have is known as a bureaucratic structure. In bureaucratic structure, it is a bureaucracy is a structure of highly operating routine tasks achieved through specialization, very formalized rules and regulations, tasks that are grouped into functional departments, centralized authority, narrow span of control and decision making that follows the chain of command. This is where maybe types of organization where like secrecy of information is very important, like where people are doing very specialized nature of job, and so and they have to be expert in the type of job that they are doing, and so there should be one unity of command so that people are not like confused about the instructions coming from different sources. So in those conditions, bureaucracy is the design that is followed. And what is the advantage of bureaucracy is that it leads to like economies of functional economies of scale, then it is the minimum duplication of personnel and equipment is there. It is enhanced communication in the sense like one to one person communication, so there is a less chance of like communication being like diverted or it's misinterpreted, and but the weaknesses are the subunits may conflict with the organization goals, because due to strong bureaucracy each subunit is trying to reach towards its own goals and made it may conflict with the main organization's purpose, because each unit is given its own target to fulfill. And there could be like obsessive concern with rules and regulations, formalities of doing things. So lack of, again the drawback could be lack of employee discretion to decide on certain issues and centralized decision making. So like waiting for orders to come when some important decisions have to be taken, these could be the drawbacks of bureaucracy. So but why bureaucracy survives is like because it's a large size, and so large size prevails. So to deal with large size of the organizations, tight formalization is required, rules and regulations, so bureaucracy prevails. So in cases of environmental turbulence, it can be largely managed, like if there are certain established ways of doing things and people are guided by rules and regulations, they know like how to stick together, like cohesiveness may increase. And standardization, which is achieved through hiring people who has extensive educational training, and the technology which is which maintains the control. So these helps the bureaucracy to survive. And in terms of like to answer for the large sized organization and its survival in a turbulent environment. So other two important management models which important design models which are important in today's life, organizational life, is that of a mechanistic model and a organic model. So what we will try to first focus into a mechanistic model of organization. Like when you are talking of a mechanistic model, it is a highly centralized, formalized and complex organizational structure, and which was formed early in 1900s by like Fayol, Weber and Foley, and it is characterized by emphasis on efficiency, highly specialized jobs, centralized problem solving and decision making, standardized policies, procedures and rules directing much of decision making, and rewards based on obeying supervisors. So this is again based on work specialization, which is on highly specialized jobs, and its decision making is centralized in nature, and there is high degree of formalization also in standardized policies and procedures which guide much of the decision making. And what is required, and you find like high authority also as and obedience, in the sense rewards are based on obeying supervisors. As contrast to it, like when you are talking of the organic model, organic model tends to maximize organizational flexibility and adaptation via de-emphasizing job descriptions and specializations and status rank differences. So, assuming that higher level employees are not necessarily better informed than those at lower levels, like emphasizing horizontal and lateral organizational relationships, and as much as or more than vertical ones, and maintaining a less permanent and more flexible structure. So, what are the advantages of these are? The advantages are it is like flexible and adaptable to environmental changes. So, it is more flexible to the environment and uncertainties in the environment. It can adapt to the changing demands from the environment. Second is it uses greater, it encourages greater use of human potential, as there is a less of formalization, there is more multidirectional communication flow, and the decision making is decentralized in nature, and there is like less of control and like more goal. It's more of the like goal setting, like you have to like reach a particular goal of like adjusting to the environment and finding out how to function better in the environment based on the resources that are there within the organization. So, these are the nature of the organic organization. The a design which gives the individual a sense of personal worth and motivation, and that facilitates flexibility and adaptability would have like three characteristics, which is relatively simple, relatively decentralized, relatively informal. So, neither the mechanistic nor the organic model is based in all situations. We have to understand like whether we need to have a mechanistic model or whether we are going for organic model. This will depend again on the like nature of environment that we are functioning in, the nature of people that are there with us, the nature of the task that is there at hand. So, it is not like the mechanistic model is bad or organic model is good. It depends on these factors like what we are working on, like and what is our objective. Like if you want to make some if you want to go for cost saving things, like then maybe mechanistic organizations are more relevant because the rules are established, there are less chances of error, and work is defined clearly, so people know what to do, there is less of time wasted. So, we can save much on this, and by reducing proper maintenance of quality, all these things are there. So, maybe it is good for that. If you are going for designing something new, thinking of some new ways of doing things, innovations, then maybe organic organization is the answer, because it is flexibility, more of communication. We can communicate, we can discuss with each other, we can experiment with things. There is less of formal rules and procedures, and maybe it generates creativity. But again, chances are possibility of error is high, in the sense in the because nothing role is defined properly. There could be like people may just sometimes if they want remain idle, or they may feel stressful, in the sense they do not know what to perform. Some people may feel stressed in that because everything is very flexible, then the roles are not clearly defined. So, they may feel it to be in a stressful situation. So, it depends like which design is based, and from depending on the purpose for which it is being used, and it is nothing like this is better than the other. So, next structure that we look into is a matrix structure, the matrix model of the organization. So, matrix structure is a structure that creates a dual lines of authority and combines functional and product departmentation. It refers to a combination of the function and product departmental basis, a balanced compromise between departmentalization by process and by purpose. So, the key elements of these are: it gains the advantage of a functional and product departmentalization while avoiding their weaknesses. It overlays a horizontal structure of authority, influence and communication on the vertical structure. So, it has dual authority system where people report to two managers, a functional supervisor and a product supervisor, facilitates coordination of complex and interdepartment activities, breaks down unity of command concept. Now, in matrix organization, what happens, like you get the expertise of learning from two persons, and and like it is like it helps to respond to rapid changes in the environment, and it helps in saving resources by not like you don't have to duplicate resources. So, what we will now look into is some of the like uses of matrix, like where it is more useful and where it, like what is advantage and is a weakness of matrix organization, and what are the different types of matrix organization. So here we find like matrix designs are used by organizations that must respond quickly to rapid change in two or more environments, face uncertainties due to high information processing requirements, deal with financial and human resources constraints. So, these are the types of organizations which may which may have to take into which take into matrix designs, which organizations take into matrix designs. Advantages of matrix organizations are, it's firstly it leads to efficient use of resources. So, having to share resources rather than duplicating the resources of specialized resources. Next is flexibility in the conditions of change and uncertainty. So, it helps in timely response to the environment because there are open communication channels, two-way communication channels of effective communications, and which is the inherent in the design. The like the product department and function departments, like if this is a matrix, then both the departments can like communicate with each other. Technical excellence is because interaction of specialists encourages cross fertilization of ideas, like if one is from the functional area and the other is from the product area, the sharing of information helps in cross fertilization of ideas. Then freeing top management for long range planning. So, it helps the online top people to delegate their responsibilities of ongoing decision making. So, next is improving motivation and commitment, as it offers more opportunity to participate in key decisions. It also provides personal development issues, like for personal development, it exposes number of members to diverse parts of the organization, their viewpoints on it, and it helps them to learn about others and become more aware of the total organization. These could be the advantages of a matrix organization. But what are the weaknesses of a matrix organization? And there are some serious weaknesses, like when a person has to work under dual authority, this is sometimes troublesome, in the sense if these two people do not agree to like what should be done and like who should be answered first. So these experience could be very could be harmful or could be like frustrating for the employee. Then participants need like good participants need good skills of communication and good interpersonal skills. Then skills and extensive training for like these developing these things. So, it is also time consuming because to arrive at a particular idea, frequent meetings are held. So, matrix organization is not going to work. Matrix organization is not going to work until the participants understand it and adopt like a collegial type of relationship, and like where there is a maintenance of power balance. So, these are some of the weaknesses of a matrix type of organization. The different types of matrix or organization that are present are like task force. New product results in a temporary task force of members from each functional departments to expedite the process. Next is teams. Teams, if new product development continues, permanent teams comprising of members from the functional departments become permanent. The teams meet regularly to resolve interdepartmental issues and achieve coordination. Product managers. So, here if the new product development becomes a way of life, product managers chair the teams and reports to top management. However, they are temporary and have no formal authority over the team members. Next is product management departments created with sub-product managers for each product line. When we are discussing the newer types of design for organization, what comes first is multinational structure and design. In multinational structure and design, what is happening? A group of geographically dispersed organizations with different national subsidiaries. It is described as some organization which often exist in divergent environments. So, what are the approaches to setting up subsidiaries are replication. So, use the same organizational structure and operating policies and procedures as in the domestic organization. So, it may result in reliance upon organizational design and management practices and unsuitable for the local environment. Then is designing in response to unique factors such as national boundaries, the varying importance of national boundaries and different elements of organizational structure. Then desire of a subsidiary to act as conduct to introduce change into the host country's environment. Desire to use subsidiary to introduce features of the host country's environment throughout the organization. So, that is the purpose of multinational structure design. So, we So, how we set up the subsidiary is based on the policy taken by the organization. Like when you are going to establish a multinational structure and design, so it depends on the what do you want to do, the replication process, or what is the role of the subsidiary in that particular organization and in the culture, because national boundaries are very important for setting up MNCs. So, what we find over here, there are 4 stages of international evaluation, like domestic, international, multinational and global. So, in domestic, the in domestic, the strategic orientation is domestically oriented. In international, it is export oriented, multi-domestic. In multinational, it's multinational, and in global, it's global. In stages of development, the domestic type of organization is organization in the domestic phase is initial foreign involvement, then competitive positioning, explosion and global. In structure, the domestic is domestic structure plus export department. In international, it is domestic structure plus international department, and multinational is worldwide geographic product, and global it is matrix and transnational. In market potential, the domestic organization is moderate, mostly domestic. In international, it is large, multi-domestic. It is multinational, it is very large multinational, and in global, it is very global, that is whole world. These are the 4 stages of international evaluation. So, when we are trying to match organizational structure to the international advantage, what we find that if the forces for global integration are low, if the forces for national responsiveness are low, and the strategy is to export, the structure is international division. If the forces for global integration are high, forces for national responsiveness is low, the strategy is globalization, then we go for like global product structure. If the forces for global integration are low, forces for national responsiveness are high, and strategy is multi-domestic in nature, the strategy is multi-domestic in nature, the structure is global geographic structure. So, again for the forces for global integration is high, forces for national responsiveness is low, strategy is globalization and multi-domestic, then the structure is global matrix structure. So from here we can understand like forces for global integration, forces for national responsiveness and strategy. These are the three forces which tries to define what structure will be chosen, which will help people to answer to the like take care of the international advantages. The emergent structural forms are like inter-organizational structure and global international network structure and the transnational corporate structure. So, in transnational corporate structure, which involves linking foreign operations to each other and to headquarters in a flexible way. So, it is a network of company units and a system of horizontal communication. The characteristics of TNCs are dispersed subunits, specialized operations and interdependent relationships. It requires the dispersal of responsibility and decision making to local subsidiaries. The effectiveness of TNC is dependent on the ability and willingness to share current and new learning and technology across the network. So, what is important over here is like what is important over here is like the two multinational structures and the differences in the output control, bureaucratic control, decision making control and organization control. In international division structure, the output is, as we find, it's more likely the profit control. In bureaucratic control, it is must follow the company policies. Decision making control is some centralization policies, and in organization control is treated like other divisions. And in global geographic structure, the profit center is most common. In bureaucratic control, some policies and procedures are necessary. So, decision making control, local units have autonomy, and in organizational control, local subsidiary cultures are often to be most important. So, when you are taking care of the geographic structure, you have to give importance to the local culture and try to assimilate it in the culture of the organization. So, these are more important ways like how these two multinational structures take care of different issues. In global product structure is unit output for supply, sales volume for sales. Then when you are talking of this So, when you are looking into global product structure and at the output control, then the thing is like unit output for supply, sales volume for sales. When you are looking into bureaucratic control, it is tight process controls for product quality and consistency. When it is like decision making control, decision is centralized at the product division headquarters, and it is organizational control is possible for some companies but not always necessary. When you are talking of transnational network structure, then we find output control is used for supplier units and some independent profit centers, and bureaucratic control is less important, and central your decision making control is few decisions centralized at headquarters, more decisions centralized as key network nodes. Then organizational culture, when you are talking of organizational control, organizational culture transcends organizational culture, transcends the national culture, which is national culture supports sharing and learning, and the most important control mechanism. So, these are the 4 types of MNCs and what are the different factors associated with it when you are talking of output control, bureaucratic control, decision making control and organizational control. Now, we are looking into some of the new design options. The first is the team structure. So, in team structure, why it is used is the team is the central device to coordinate work activities. The characteristics of team structure are the breakdown departmental barriers, enhances communication, decentralized decision making from team level, requires employees to be generalists as well as specialists, creates a flexible bureaucracy, and however, for teams amount of horizontal coordination required in high cost, and cost of community and the cost of coordination in time and human resources is also high. So, this is one of the disadvantage of team structure, in the sense like you spend lot of time in coordination, and coordination in team is very costly, and because you have to get the appropriate nature of human resources, they have to like each other, the mental bonding has to be formed, they have to be trained in how to form a proper team. So, cost of like training, cost of training, cost of coordination, and cost of in terms of time and human resources high for these team structures. So, we have to know like when to use the structure. Network organization is small core organization that has outsourced its major business function in order to concentrate on what it does. And modular organization is a manufacturing organization that uses outside suppliers to provide products component for its final assembly operations. So, here what happens, like the product is made separately, parts of the product is made separately in modules with different people and with suppliers, and then they provide it to the main organization who assemble it into the kind of thing it required, and it is like used in that sense, like a manufacturing organization that uses outside suppliers to provide product components for its final assembly operations, and after that the total things comes out. Virtual organization. In virtual organization, it is again a small core organization that outsources its major employees. That outsources its major business functions. So, it is highly concentrated with centralized with no departmentalization. So, advantage of it is like provides maximum flexibility to people, and while concentrating on what the organization does best. The disadvantage could be that the reduced control over the key parts of the business. Like if everything is done virtually, we do not know like where it is done and how it is done, and there is reduced control over the parts. There is too much of autonomy and delegation of authority, and there is reduced control over key parts of the business. So, what we find is that many complex factors, factors and variables must be considered in designing an optimum organizational structure. So, we have to understand like the overall structure is formed as a result of the key decision processes in the organization for a particular design, and it is dependent on the overall goal of the organization. So, which channelizes individual and group behavior into patterns that contribute to organizational performance. Like how next is organizations of future, like whether it like to be flatter, less hierarchical and more decentralized, and designs are driven by technology and its capability. Boundaryless organizations are another design model. It is an attempt to eliminate vertical and horizontal structure, and it has tightly reserved and defined work roles and top-down control. The minimized layers result in a flatter hierarchy. So, these are certain factors like which defines like what is the design of the particular organization. like what is the overall goal, what do you want to feature as the organization of the future, and do you go for boundaryless organizations or not. When we are talking of boundaryless organizations, so these are organizations that seeks to eliminate the chain of command, have limitless span of control, and replace departments with empowered units and teams. The T-form concept, it's eliminate vertical and horizontal internal boundaries. So, break down external barriers into customer and supplier. The learning organization is an organization that has developed the capacity to continuously learn, develops the capacity to continuously learn, adapt and change through the practice of knowledge management by employees. So, learning organization is that which has developed the capacity to continuously learn, adapt and change through the practice of knowledge management by employees. So, here we find again boundaryless organizations could be like of T-form concepts and learning organization. The characteristics of a learning organization are it is an open based team organization design that empowers employees, extensive and open information shared which is timely and accurate, then leadership that provides a shared vision of organization's future, support and encouragement, and a strong culture of shared values, trust, openness and sense of community. Next we come to a design which is called socio-technical model. In socio-technical model, what is done? Here the design is such like it takes care of both the needs of the individual and the fulfillment of the needs of the organization. That is why this is called socio-technical model of designing the organization. So, it is aimed at the joint optimization of the social model, social system like which is called the individuals and teams behavior, organization etc., management practices, leadership style, and the and it's the technical system. It is a blend between the social system and the technical system of a type of production technology, small batches, mass production etc., physical work setting, complexity of the work environment, and whether it is analyzable or a nature of raw materials etc., all through how these two blend together through properly defined work roles and workflow, setting of goals and values, and matching the skills and attitudes with the job. So, what happens here is the individuals are consulted, their opinions are taken while designing systems in the way that they would prefer to work. So, this leads to like fulfillment of both the individual need and the behavior and the technical part of the organizations. So, what happens over here is there is a balance, like if we are not consulting the social part, the social system, and we are not involving the employees in the designing of the organization, what happens, they may feel uncomfortable in the organizational design, and we may not take care of the factor psychological factors which gets affected in the design process. So, as we discussed earlier, like in the last class, if like different designs, different structures affect people differently and affect their performances. So here what we have to do is to, like in socio-technical design, we take the employees' needs first from them and try to translate it into the map it with the technical part of the system and try to give a design for it. Next we will discuss the empowerment styles in Indian context. The empowerment styles in Indian context are information sharing, upward problem solving, task autonomy, and attitudinal shaping and self management. So, information sharing is one of the important issues of empowerment in organization. Then upward mobilization of the problem solving, like whether this, when the people give suggestions, whether it is heard or not, whether the suggestions are taken or not, whether it's been communicated to them or not, whether autonomy is given to prepare the task in certain way or not, and what is the shape of the attitude of the people towards empowerment, and how do they like self management, because you don't have guides to tell you what you can do, what you are good at something. So next is like how, what is there for restructuring Indian organizations and what are the challenges and responses to it. The challenges are the pressures for competition as a result of liberalization is squeezing marginal profits, margins and profits. The globalization of business has compelled more and more companies to establish export departments. New developments in IT have made it necessary to adopt new technological arrangements. The shift in fiscal policy and reduction of government expenditure have forced companies to identify new customers and markets. Then cost cutting and increased productivity is demanding downsizing of workforces at both worker and managerial level. These are some of the challenges which are being faced by the Indian organizations. And the answers to it is like regrouping business activities, and like different units are grouped together, and strategic business units where each of the, there are different, if the focus is on more than one business, then each of the business functions as separate units within the umbrella of the major company. Each has its own functions and departments and services in place, and each has its own policies developed, mission developed. So under the big umbrella, these are again smaller units defined, and each has its own goal to reach, and that is how it is functioning. So these are called SBUs. Impact of culture on Indian business organizations are centralized decision making, in most cases low decision making, individual orientation, avoidance of conflict, low risk tolerance, then focus on results, individual accountability, little or no horizontal cooperation, highly politicized environment, this is very important, highly politicized environment, bureaucratic structure, resistance to change, guarded communication, slow communication, adoption of indirect communication style. So what you find, like there is a more sort of like protective culture a paternalistic culture where people wants to be guided to some extent, and there is resistance to change, and people would love to be guided from top regarding how to do things. These are some of the culture specific findings of like what is the impact of culture, the Indian business organization based on the Indian culture and how organizations are reacting to it. Based on this, we will move to certain questions like define organizational structure and design. We have already defined it in the start of the discussion. Describe the key elements for organizational structure. What are the determinants of organizational structure? How are the outcomes? What are the outcomes of structure? So, explain the effect of organizational design on employee behavior. Justify with some research findings. Describe with suitable example the challenges faced in designing an organizational structure. Describe the suitable examples, the various organizational designs. What according to you is the best design and why? What are the empowerment styles in Indian perspective? What are the challenges and responses restructuring of Indian organizations? State the impact of culture on Indian business organization. What is the structure of MNC? Write short notes on learning organization and socio-technical system. Thank you.